Good morning, and thank you for joining us for the Victory Metals Investor Webinar. Today, we are joined by Victory's CEO, Brendan Clark, and Technical Advisor, Professor Ken Collison. So last week, the company announced that it had successfully produced a mixed rare earth carbonate test product from clay samples that were taken from the North Stanmore Rare Earth Elements Project. Brendan, I'll hand over to you to kick things off.
Thank you, Jane, and welcome everybody. So with rare earth elements set to be the next Australian mining boom, today I'll discuss the challenges associated with the industry and how our company, Victory Metals, is overcoming them and on the way to a very exciting journey. So rare earth elements are 15 different elements which are used for a range of uses and each have different values. The main type of rare earth deposits are hard rock and clay hosted. Eventually, Mother Nature's done the work over millions of years and broken down the material for clay deposits, where hard rock deposits require large capex and larger plants to crush and grind to extract the elements. To take it one step further, rare earth elements are then broken into two categories, light rare earths and heavy rare earths. And then to make it more complex, light rare earths don't actually have a great value. In fact, several light rare earths are in abundance and have low value and sit around $1 per kilogram like lanthanum and cerium, which make up the majority of many light rare earth dominated projects. Even the more valuable and in-demand light rare earth elements like neodymium and praseodymium, they've got a combined value of around $215 per kilogram. And although these two elements are in demand, major hard rock mining companies like Lynas and their Mount Weld deposit have this supply chain in good order. Heavy rare earths, including dysprosium and terbium, being critical and set to be at 70% deficit by 2030, they've got a combined value over $2,100 per kilogram, being more than 10 times the more valuable light rare earths, neodymium and praseodymium. Now, when considering clay rare earth discoveries, there's a few things that are really important. Metallurgy, radioactive elements like uranium and thorium, impurities, aluminium and iron, and then the overall basket price, the location of the discovery, the scale, and of course, the sovereign risk. So what have we done to manage these important factors? And why are we the future of Australian rare earths? So firstly, we've achieved leading recoveries with low acid leach times and low acid usage. So I've discussed this many times before, but our leach time is 4 hours. And we've actually got great recoveries at that time. If you've got a project with a 24-hour recovery and a 4-hour recovery, you're going to need a 6-time larger process plant to get the same throughput of material. Beneficiation is also an important factor when looking at these processes. So we've managed to identify that rare earth elements are mostly bonded with our finer material, which means we can get rid of the coarse material before sending it through the separation plant. And this has seen an upgrade up to 148% increase in our grade. Another important factor is the actual commercial viability of the of clay projects is the actual recoveries of the key magnet metals, praseodymium, neodymium, dysprosium, and terbium. We've achieved 77% recovery of these four elements using a blend of ammonium sulfate and sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid being 5 times cheaper than hydrochloric acid and much easier to work with. Now, something that doesn't actually get discussed by many people at all, and that's gangue materials. When recovering your rare earth elements, you also recover gangue materials like aluminium and iron. This can be actually very costly and sometimes cost more money than what the actual basket of the recovered rare earth elements are. Victory, our head grade of these two gangue materials were 4% and 8% respectively, and 99% was successfully removed with a low-cost method of soda ash. Another point that isn't discussed as much as it should be as well, is the radioactive elements commonly found with rare earth deposits. And at the same time of recovery, these two elements come through in the carbonate and can be very, very challenging and cumbersome to deal with. The next component is the basket price. When you put all your recoveries together, and the only time you can really get an accurate basket price is when you've created a mixed rare earth carbonate. Then you're able to assay what's in that carbonate. And Victory has recently announced that we had 96.4% heavy rare earths and close to 7% dysprosium and terbium. Along with that, we identified nickel, cobalt, copper byproducts that came through at no additional cost and at the same time. Last factor that I want to discuss is that the location of the project. We are 100% owned we are situated in a very favourable weather conditions that allow exploration throughout the year. And recently, our neighbour Westgold has just initiated their hybrid power plant, making future development prospects for Victory very possible. We currently have a JORC of 250 million tonnes at an inferred resource, with drilling recently completed that is aimed and designed to upgrade that resource, not only the category, but also the scale and the grade. Western Australia is #1 mining jurisdiction in the world, voted by the Fraser Institute, and that's something that should be actually considered when looking at these things. Our next step is to await the assay results and from our latest drilling program that will upgrade the JORC. After that, we've also explored 7 kilometres to the north, where we believe that we could host further mineralisation, with those assays currently pending. After that, as we get into the first quarter of 2024, we'll go straight on to scoping studies, offtake discussions, and government and communication with government departments. I want to hand you over now to Ken or to anyone that wants to hit us up for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, gentlemen, we're getting a lot of questions that are coming through, and please, I encourage webinar users to use the Q&A function, which can be found at the bottom of your screen. But let me jump into it. So Ken, for you, when reviewing the concentrations of rare earth oxide in deposits, why is it important to consider the amount of dysprosium and terbium?
When you're evaluating a rare earth deposit, it's very important to look at the total concentration of rare earth oxides, and they include both the light rare earths and the heavy rare earths. And many of the recent discoveries in Australia are dominated by light rare earth enriched systems. The difference with the North Stanmore intrusion, where Victory's deposit is located, is that this system is heavily dominated by heavy rare earths. These are particularly the dysprosium and terbium component of the heavy rare earth spectrum, because it's the dysprosium and terbium component that are the high value heavy rare earths. High value because they're in demand, in short supply, and because they are the critical heavy rare earths that enable magnets to operate at high temperatures. Victory's discovery is quite unique in Australia in terms of its heavy rare earth to total rare earth concentration. And that's come through now with the first metallurgy that we've produced, where we've got a very, very strong concentration and recovery of the heavy rare earth elements. And that has had a major impact on the basket price of the heavy rare earths.
Thank you, Ken. That actually just answered the next question. Actually, I might hand to you for this one, Brendan. So why is North Stanmore a unique geological discovery?
We understand the reason the rare earths are there, and that's because it's a mafic ultramafic alkaline intrusion. And it was predicted by a very well-known professor from UWA that there was a plume event from Mount Weld all the way through to Kew, and that's what we've identified. So it's very significant because we just haven't stumbled across this. We have magnetic anomalism underlying the basement of these clays. So we truly understand why the rare earth and the critical metals are there.
Ken, anything you want to add there?
And I'll add to that. Brendan mentioned that an additional component of the recovery that we're seeing in the metallurgy is nickel, cobalt, and copper. And that's because the underlying intrusion is enriched in nickel, copper, and cobalt. So it's perfectly explainable in terms of the source material for the regolith, where the rare earth deposit is located. We can explain that geochemical enrichment as coming directly from a mafic and ultramafic source below the intrusion. And it's a large source. It's not probably a single intrusion. It's probably a composite of a range of intrusions. And we know from the rare earth patterns that we've seen to date these are what are called chondrite normalized rare earth patterns. For those who are involved in rare earth evaluation, very important to understand what these patterns mean. But we see from the chondrite normalized patterns that there is a range of rock types in the basement contributing to the regolith. Some of them are mafic and ultramafic, but they're also carbonate-rich components. There are carbonatites involved in the regolith development of the North Stanmore intrusion.
Thank you, Ken. I'll stick with you for this one. So what is meant by the term mixed rare earth carbonate?
Well, mixed rare earth carbonate is, if you like, the goal of production from the initial metallurgy. It is it's, if you like, the source material that is then used to split the rare earths into their various components. So a rare earth carbonate is I guess the ultimate production proof that you can establish a basket price. And many companies are quoting basket prices, but they've not yet produced a mixed rare earth carbonate, which demonstrates that they can extract the rare earths from their regolith and weathering products. In the case of the Victory system at North Stanmore, we've actually recovered a very significant rare earth carbonate that contains up to 15 weight% total rare earth oxides. Now, looking around the commercial application of rare earth carbonates, there's probably a 30% discount in selling the rare earth carbonate as a rare earth carbonate without the producer having to go through the added step, at very expensive steps, of splitting the rare earths into their different components. This is a very, very marketable component. And so Victory has demonstrated that it has achieved a marketable component from its initial metallurgical studies, which were carried out in Brisbane at Core Resources, a very, very competent boutique metallurgy company.
Thank you for that, Ken. Next one, actually, I'll stand with you for this one. So why is it important for companies to show that it can be produced without the use of HCl?
Well, a lot of the companies in Australia working with specific metallurgy groups are finding that it's rather difficult using the conventional ammonium sulfate sulfuric acid mix to recover their rare earth elements by leaching. And they've therefore gone to leaches that involve hydrochloric acid. And as Brendan mentioned in his presentation, hydrochloric acid is expensive. It is significantly more expensive than sulfuric acid, ammonium sulfate leach lixiviants. And so it is probably not going to be economically viable, particularly given the fact that many of these deposits where hydrochloric acid is being used are strongly lighter earth enriched in some of the cerium, where there may be a component of some recovery of neodymium and praseodymium, which is not going to be in short supply. And so the hydrochloric acid-based systems would be less attractive, I think, in my opinion, for future evaluation as possible viable projects to be considering.
Thank you, Ken. So another one's popped up. So what has Victory achieved to date from a metallurgical standpoint?
Well, Victory has undertaken a number of studies at our laboratory in Brisbane. The most recent was a benchtop proof of concept study using randomly selected RC samples collected over the entire MRE sample area. It was about a 50 kilogram sample. We recovered, I think, 9 carbonates from that, and those rare earth carbonates contained 15 weight% total rare earth oxides. That's 150,000 parts per million rare earth oxides.
Thank you, Ken. So at current market prices, what is the total approximate value of materials in the project?
We can't, until we hit the scoping study stage, Jane. That's a difficult one to answer. Our initial MRE has released 130,000 tons of total rare earth oxide. You've got to take into consideration recoveries, and obviously there's going to be a mix throughout that system. Our MRE is only our start. We believe we've got opportunity not only to become the largest rare earth discovery in Australia, but one of the largest in the world. With what we're seeing at North Stanmore, our exploration target extends up to 1.1 billion tonnes, and we have announced the basket price in our recent mixed rare earth carbonate of $114 a kilogram. So at the moment it would only be assumptions, but on high levels, people could obviously see what the potential is for North Stanmore.
Thanks, Brendan. Just further to that then, so when will the next MRE be released?
We were hoping by the end of this year, although with the critical metals that we've been coming across, we've extended some of the drilling into the basement further to understand geologically what's going on there. So our drilling program extended on a few weeks. So that will probably push us into the first quarter of next year. But it's all going well, and assays are streaming through the lab. So we look forward to getting that out hopefully in the first quarter of next year, but it's looking very promising to achieve that.
Perfect. And I think just finally to wrap things up, do you want to just reiterate to our attendees what they should be looking forward to over the next sort of 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, I think it's certainly, this rare earth space, we've always known since we made the discovery how significant it is and what the market outlook was. That's just becoming more obvious with what's happening around the world and in China, recent meetings in the US with the Australian government. So one thing that we want to start working on is government relations, and I think that's something to look forward to over the coming months, as well as offtake discussions and continuing to prove up the resource and take our resource from inferred to indicated, and get into that scoping study so we can work towards getting this project developed. So it's very exciting times. This recent news of the mixed rare earth carbonate, the market, I don't think has understood it as significant as what it is. It's a very big game changer for the Australian market, and we're very excited to be in this space.
Thank you, Ken. I actually might just hand to you. Why are you so excited about this project?
Well, it's in my opinion, it's an extremely exciting opportunity for Australia. It is almost a predicted discovery because it was inferred by Marco Fiorentini at University of Western Australia. There was a plume track going from Mount Weld through the northern Yilgarn Craton, and he predicted that there would be alkaline intrusions along that track. North Stanmore intrusion is one of those. So when you get sort of predicted discoveries that are achieving goals, this is extremely exciting. Predictive exploration is the name of the game in exploration. And we've, at North Stanmore, found a large alkaline system, probably many different types of intrusions related to this plume track going from Mount Weld through the northern Yilgarn, and above it is a 70-meter thick regolith. This regolith is the weathered rock above the intrusion, and it has evolved over geological time through probably many weathering events, not just a single weathering event, probably like one sees in the case of the Chinese and some of the other ionic clay deposits. But this is a weathering event over probably 2 billion years. Every time the Yilgarn Craton drifted north into the tropics, weathering took place. And so this 70-meter thick regolith at North Stanmore shows all of the characteristics of a very, very thick regolith-hosted rare earth deposit. There are some components in it that are clearly ionic clay related, but there are also other components that are related to secondary phosphate minerals like rhabdophane and churchite. They are the phosphate minerals that come from the breakdown of monazite and xenotime. And the beauty of that is when that breakdown takes place, uranium and thorium are liberated and they move out of the system. And that's why this is a very, very low uranium and low thorium regolith system.
Wonderful. Well, that's all we have time for today. I want to thank you all for joining us for the Victory Metals Investor webinar. If we've missed any of your questions, please feel free to reach out via the contact details at the bottom of our ASX releases. But we look forward to hosting you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.